Thank you for joining us for our Spooktober 2021 review. There will be a lot of spoilers for the following.
But fuck them.
Wait. We're going with Carol's pick first, but are we not doing the first of her movies first?
We should do Bubba Hotep first.
Yeah,
I was going to say.
It was first.
Well, these aren't listed in order, but okay, let's go with Bubba Hotep.
Okay, so Bubba Hotep was our first Spooktober movie. I personally love that movie. I do. I think it's hilarious. I love Ossie Davis. It's silly. It's ridiculous. But it's Bruce Campbell. And it's fun.
I remember hating it from my college years. I thought it was slow-paced. I thought it was boring. And I didn't appreciate Bruce Campbell enough back then. Upon reviewing it, it was pretty good. I enjoyed it a lot more. It's not for...
It's enjoyable, but not Bruce Campbell's best work.
I just want to mention, it's not for the younger viewer.
No.
It's clearly meant to be this is a horror scenario, a horror movie scenario, like the Evil Dead movies, but with a much older individual who's been, left behind by modern society. That's the whole point of the movie.
It answered the age-old question, what would happen if Elvis Presley and John F. Kennedy teamed up to fight a monster?
Exactly.
I think you're right about the audience, the target audience. It's definitely not for younger viewers. I don't think they'll get it. I think they'll get bored with all the old people.
Yeah, Joe.
I mean, that was kind of like my first viewing of this. I thought it was so slow-paced and sluggish. And that's the point. But it really is the point. It takes definitely a more wise kind of perspective to realize, that's part of the joke. It's the fact that these people have been, left behind by even the people who take care of them. They just don't care about them.
And the pacing is like going down the hall of a nursing home with a walker.
Yeah.
But I love it.
And the antagonist is kind of chosen quite well for that scenario, considering the antagonist is a mummy, essentially.
Yeah.
So the mummy is not exactly quick. It's not, the smartest guy on the planet either. It's just a lumbering zombie that sucks souls, essentially, with magic.
Kind of felt like a supernatural villain. Like he had some Scooby-Doo type gimmick going for him. Like he's targeting the old folks' home, so everybody just assumes the old people die instead of him killing them.
Yeah, that's. So, next we had Sundown, Vampires in Retreat. Kieran, go ahead. Let's have it.
No, those child actors were fucking terrible. I know I bring that up just about every time there is a child in a movie.
Unless it's Christina Ricci. Because I think we all like Christina Ricci. In the Phantom, when we saw that,
genuinely really good.
Yeah, she was terrific in the Addams Family when we watched it.
And she still is a great actor.
Rare case of a great child actor. Rare case. 90% of the time, fucking garbage. Particularly in this movie, they're just absolutely terrible.
I'm not exactly on the same boat as voting this one individual to be the poster child for all poster childs in this case, this argument, this context. This movie was tonally inconsistent. I thought it was all over the place. I mentioned this during the viewing. Some scenes are dramatically intense, where it's one rival versus another, and the family's lives are on the line and everything. And then it's really, really placed off kilter by the kids arguing over McDonald's with the mother, and it's kind of okay, I'll get you chicken nuggets if we survive this vampire fight to the death of this whole town. Some jokes don't work, and some jokes are just what were they thinking?
Okay, the whole, mom bribing him with McDonald's, that's just part of parenthood. That just seemed completely normal in the movie to me. That's how you deal with kids. It wasn't a joke.
Some jokes did land, though. That's the thing. When the kids are going down the street and they're all waving to the vampires, the funniest damn thing in the whole movie. I was crying with laughter during that whole bit.
I love that bit.
You're gonna hate
I mean,
me for
the
saying
more
this.
interesting parts, the most interesting part of that movie really was just like the general weirdness of the town being, kind of amusing. The actual story of the movie, not very good.
You're gonna hate me for saying this, but this movie might be tied with one other movie as my favorite pick that Carol made.
Oh, you son of a bitch.
Okay, hear me out here. Now, it's not for the kids. It's not even for the main characters of this movie. They were all awful. I just really, really enjoyed the supporting cast. Like, all right, it wasn't Bruce Campbell at his best, but it's still Bruce Campbell. It wasn't David Carradine.
Bruce Campbell. That's my big complaint.
They wasted Bruce Campbell. I'm not denying that. David Carradine. I love David Carradine. You all know the scene. I freaking love David Carradine.
Oh, yeah.
It made me laugh for a solid 5 minutes.
Yeah, the second week we watched this, the rest of the month it got quoted. Like, by you exclusively.
I fucking loved it. He was bone sober too. Like, David Carradine is usually shit-faced drunk whenever we see him in a movie. He was completely sober in this, and he made me laugh harder than he ever did when he was wasted. So that's an amazing feat.
How do you know? Like, is there an uncanny valley for David Carradine getting drunk and you just can't tell anymore?
We've seen him drunk so often. Like, he didn't.
Like, when is he sober? When is he just drunk?
Kill Bill sober, Future Force, 40% alcohol.
I mean, at least in that movie, he admits he is going to get drunk.
Yeah, the supporting cast of that movie was kind of the best part of it.
Bobby from Twin Peaks was there in prison most of the movie.
Yeah, we don't need to list every single one, but
They were terrific, though. I'm just saying. Great supporting
they
cast.
were, but you don't need to go over each individual person and give them praise for it. Just in general, supporting cast.
Well, I had never seen this movie before. I had seen Bubba Hotep before, but I had never seen this before. I only picked it because of Bruce Campbell. Okay? I love Bruce Campbell. And I got all of, 38 seconds of Bruce Campbell. I mean, clearly it was actually more than 38 seconds, but it really felt like they wasted him. He didn't get enough screen time. But what screen time he did get was funny.
After a certain point in the movie, he ceases to be a character, which is weird given the fact that what happens to him should make him even funnier than he already is.
A little bit more interesting. Instead, he's like background fodder, finally.
Yeah, like, he gets degraded to a stormtrooper, essentially.
You could almost say what happened to him made him lose his soul.
Oh, God.
Like, thematically as well. I mean,
and I could have sworn.
And his purpose.
Yeah. He has one line after that, or maybe two. And then, I can even remember one of the lines. It's, "Do you want a piece of me?" Something.
Yeah, after what happens to him happens, and it's like the last half hour of the movie at that point. The whole thing had been building up into that. He laughs in the background at one of David Carradine's would-be jokes. And I think that's the only thing I remember him doing.
And I kind of remember having seen that movie before, at least the ending. And
I had never seen it.
Yeah, it's weird. Watching the ending of that movie brought back memories of me having seen the movie as a kid.
It might have been something that flipping channels and, something I really want to watch is going to be on in 10 minutes. Let me just leave it on this channel.
It could very well be.
Because there's some movie endings I can remember seeing, and I'm like, I've never seen this movie. How the hell do I remember this ending? And it was probably a situation like that. Because I used to do that myself. So that one, I mean, I probably liked it more than y'all.
I liked it too.
I did find it amusing. I didn't find it great. I found it lower than Bubba Hotep, definitely.
Oh, most definitely. I found it less. Okay, we often joke Alienator is the perfect line between 5 and 6. This was below Alienator for me. I hated it. I was not a fan. I love the concept. I love the idea of like, hey, vampires in the middle of nowhere, so therefore it's a vampire western, right? But it's just so all over the place. It's not funny in some sequences. The kids are kind of annoying. I do agree with Kieran, but not overpowered for me. And the finale is just like it does end on a hopeful note, which is kind of shocking. Like we mentioned that on the actual night. It has like the hopeful ending, which is like something you hardly ever see from like a vampire flick.
No,
Yeah,
not
that-
almost
that
ever.
was good.
So I suppose we'll probably go into it at some point, but like definitely has a better ending than the platform.
Oh God.
Most movies
Okay.
do.
We'll get into that another
We'll
time.
get into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So wasn't next Death Bell? I think it was Death Bell,
believe
Mortuary
so,
Collection.
yes.
Yeah, okay. So Death Bell, the Korean movie. Again, I've already seen this one. I loved it.
Out of all the
Joe's-
movies you picked, I would say Death Bell was probably my favorite.
This is gonna be Joe's favorite.
Mm-mm. and you know exactly why.
And it's so ridiculous.
I'm sorry, but when you have these type of Squid Game type rules, it's like what I
It's
can't
not
get. I'll get into
It's
Squid Game
Squid
spoilers.
Game.
I know, but
No, it's not even that.
it's a similar type scenario of Squid Games and Saw. And
No, it's Battle Royale. You know it is.
no, it's not.
Yeah,
Battle
it
Royale.
is. It is.
Like
It's
the
closer
whole.
to Saw. I will give them this. It is closer to Saw than anything like Squid Games or something like that, because it is being done to the people without their consent, unlike Squid Games.
Yeah, I'll give Squid Games that. At least it's consensual.
The
And
difference with this is it's not. It wasn't a game. It was a revenge story.
Yeah, but
Honestly, I honestly think that made the movie a little bit more interesting to me because I didn't like the premise. The premise is like just generic. You've seen it done before and like over and over and again. And the motivative kind of like mechanics of the movie and like a movie like that is always the same thing. It's like students falling out with each other. Who do you trust? You know, like who can you really trust in this horrific situation to get you through this? And like I didn't feel it was compelling. I felt it was very generic, as if like Battle Royale, because that's the setup, isn't it? I mean, a class of people
It's not
stuck
even
together.
so much that because it's not like the classmates were like turned on each other.
yeah, it's not like they were opposing each other, like they were against each other.
But it's the same kind of setup, you know, like a class put in this like a horrific situation. The only difference is in this for me was like they were all stuck in the same room for the majority of it until they were allowed to get out.
I also predicted who the killer was like a mile away because
Okay.
I knew I'm not gonna go spoilers.
Oh no,
All right, Mr. Wikipedia.
You always say that every time I make a logical deduction.
but I don't
Yeah,
think.
because I question how logical it was.
Okay, I don't think who the killer is really the shock or the most interesting part of the movie. I think why the killer is like way more interesting in that movie.
I'll-
Honestly made it more interesting for me.
I'll give the movie that, but in terms of the whodunit angle, I predicted whodunit about 30 minutes to an hour in.
Like when you take into account this movie
Jesus.
is essentially a commentary about like modern South Korean kind of like tuition and why it's so cutthroat in that, especially in that city district where it's supposed to be based.
Oh yeah.
See,
Like,
that's what I found the most interesting.
Yeah, that's
As a teacher-
compelling and engaging. That's legitimately interesting and also like condemning too.
Yeah, as a teacher, I actually found that to be the most interesting part of when it actually went into how their schooling system actually works.
Yeah, this is your antagonist. This is your antagonist in everything they're based around. So the girl who presumably got killed before the movie and the setup for the whole thing, like her presence throughout the entire thing, like all of that was kind of like wallflower, like boilerplate dressing. Whereas, come on, like that second half was more interesting than the first bit for me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say the first half because the first half is where you get all the info about the education system.
I think you get more info about the education system later.
More about how fucked up it is, but
Hell, there's that bit in the second half where it almost seems like a brief moment of nobility. Like our villain isn't really the villain of the movie; it's somebody else who like instigated everything.
yeah, kind of.
Who made it so much worse than it should have ever been.
Basically abided by everything that started it all.
I will say one thing about Death Belt I wish they put it on a little bit better is it wasn't exactly particularly clear for a good portion of the movie as to why what was happening was happening. If it was made a lot more evident of why it was happening, why such revenge was being sought, then I think that would have made it a bit more interesting. At least for
But
me.
they didn't actually even know it was revenge for a long time. You were basically in the shoes of the student or other faculty.
Yeah.
You were seeing it through the viewpoint of one of the victims of what was going on.
The premise is like saw in broad daylight. The payoff in the second half is like good old fashioned revenge, and like it's actually developed quite well because the whole thing is far out.
That's just one thing I wish they had done a bit better.
The original Saw did this premise a little bit better, though, I think.
I really like this movie, but I'm still going to put Bubba Hotep above it. Because I love Bruce Campbell so much. I just love Bruce Campbell.
Go on.
Next, we watched the Mortuary Collection. We watched the Mortuary Collection because I heard of it and I found out Clancy Brown was in it. And, well, I love Clancy Brown. So.
No, see, for me, this is tied with Sundown in terms of Carl's best pick.
This is clearly like a level of competency and quality that's like high above the others. I enjoyed this movie. I thought it was great. I thought it was very memorable and could see myself seeing it again at some point.
Oh, I could easily see myself watching this again.
Like the premise is Clancy Brown narrating a bunch of spooky anthology stories.
Yes.
In like grim detail, and he's playing this mortician who's seemingly ageless. Like it's a genuinely fascinating premise. Like I would watch a movie about that, not even knowing it was good, wouldn't you?
Yeah. I didn't really even know anything at all about it other than Clancy Brown is in it and it's supposed to be really good.
Doesn't even feel like a movie. It feels like a TV show or a special or something.
Yeah. Like he's not wrong. That's probably spot on to what it actually was.
You know, I could see it feeling more like a TV show, like Tales from the Crypt.
Exactly.
Like
Tales from the Mortuary.
I actually read up on this movie behind the scenes after we finished it. I think it was like actually thought tooth and claw to actually produce with Clancy Brown in mind. Like he always wanted to do this role, but they never had enough funding for it originally.
Oh.
It turned out to be kind of a shock. So
I liked it. I did really like it. I like anthologies. I actually really like the short, good horrors.
You like one specific tale out of this anthology?
Yes.
Specifically.
Yes.
Is it? Oh yes, I know.
You know what it is.
The College Boy.
But
The College Boy. Yes. Don't be silly.
It has build up, it has payoff, it has a really good fourth story, which kind of like ties everything together quite nicely. There's lines in the movie that you don't feel like are going to pay off at some point. They just seem kind of errant and random, arbitrary. And then later on, it's like, bang, here's the payoff. And it's a...
And in a way, it's a 5-story. Because what's going on between Clancy Brown's character and who played the blonde girl?
I have no idea.
But, the what's going on, their dialogue, their interaction, their process is kind of another story. It's kind of in a way a 5-story. But definitely 4. I really like it.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite ones in the movie. The lady is Caitlin Custer, who plays the blonde-haired girl.
Karen, what do you think?
I think the one trouble with kind of movies like this, where it's multiple sort of stories, is or some of them are entertaining, but then there's also kind of that lull when you get a story that's just not quite so good, and I feel like that kind of just detracted a bit from the entirety as a whole.
Which story?
And as such, for me, it was more of a 6 or 7 out of 10.
Which story did you think lulled, brought it down?
It's been a while since we watched this now. So I'm just
well, there's the Cthulhu. There was the
Cthulhu was there and done.
Yeah,
barely any
it was
time.
like 3, 4.
Didn't think that was interesting at all.
There was the college boy.
Yeah,
there
that one
was,
entertaining and all.
The husband and wife.
Mm-hmm.
The cat.
A little slow, but not.
And then there was the babysitter.
I like the babysitter. Probably one of the least interesting parts.
Really? Because I thought that was the best one. Oh, wow.
I agree with Phil. I thought that was the best one too.
I think it was the most. I did think it was done well. I really liked that, but I think it was the most standard Halloween horror movie.
But that was the framing.
It kind of felt like that bit was almost like if it was written by college students. The very kind of generic, sort of almost an introduction to horror, kind of basic kind of thing.
Okay.
I feel like
after the babysitter is a very common thing in horror.
But that was the intention.
Yeah.
Like that's the intention for the trick they were pulling. There's a lot of movies that
it just didn't work for me.
There's a lot of movies that we watched this month that feel like in post it's a bunch of directors kind of looking back on their movies and saying like, hey, we know this thing is like the gold standard for like how this goes. That's why we're going to do it completely differently in like an alternative kind of, or often reverse take on things. Like you got to admit, like towards the end of like our Halloween, we basically saw a lot of like metafiction angles on how things went down, like reversals, like mockumentaries.
Yeah, we straight up watched a mockumentary. The next one I chose was Takashi Miike's Audition.
I'm good.
Torture porn, the movie.
Well, basically.
It's a very slow burn. And some people just don't have the patience.
It has excellent direction. It's a slow burn, intense drama with some genuinely disturbing scenes by, I think it's Shio Anna, is the actress who played the lead role. And she's amazing in this. She's genuinely great. She's creepy as hell. She's somewhat like you can see there's definitely an attractive like side to her, where she seems almost, teenage, young in scope. But
I think she is pretty, but
there's something very dark, like the way. I mean, it's obvious, like as the movie goes along, there's something very dark, but like there's something like not quite human and on the level behind those eyes when you see it.
I could tell she was a psychopath right off the bump.
One of the better kinds of horror that doesn't really do outright like horrifying so much as extremely unsettling.
Yeah.
And it does that very well.
You know why it works, and I think you favorably receive this one is because it's not that the main character's an idiot; it's that he's arrogant, and he doesn't see it in front of his face until it's too late.
Yeah,
he's self-absorbed.
Yeah, he's completely
very self-absorbed.
That's a pretty good point.
He seems like he's detached from the world around him.
Yeah, he's taking life for granted at the end of the day.
Because there's things that just go right over his head, and you as an audience member could very easily pick up on. And like, dude, how are you missing that?
Yeah, but you as the audience member get to see creepy scenes like her waiting in front of the phone with like her spinal column like slightly out of a jar.
And her pet. That's not her pet.
Yummy.
Oh no! Don't say that.
Best character out the whole thing is Gangu.
What?
Wait, who's that? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Beagle.
Of course she would remember that.
Well, yes. I mean, what does my life revolve around, Joe? It revolves around dog rescue. So, yeah, I noticed the dog and pay attention to the dog. He's the cutest, the sweetest, most innocent. I really do. There's
Wait, are we talking about the guy in the back? Or...
no the beagle.
Really? That's too mixed up, really.
Well, I had to. It was like the context of the situation. We aren't talking about this specific movie. I mean,
What this movie does really, really well is a constant sense of unease.
Oh, it's a very uncomfortable.
Something just enough off that nothing feels right, but not so far off that it's straight out. You're waiting for your next jump scare.
so I think I said on the night when we was watching this, like, it really did remind me of a Yuki Onna story. And he was like, no,
Yeah.
I don't think so. But, like, the whole crux of the thing changes completely in the movie because she feels like she's been betrayed. And that's kind of the whole Yuki Onna story, which is like a secret psycho just waiting to happen.
She's not a secret psycho.
Oh, she's like
Not
very open
Yuki Onna.
psycho. Okay.
Well, to the audience, she's not a secret psycho. To
No,
our
no.
protagonist, she is.
No, the Yuki Onna. Yuki
Okay.
Onna is not a secret psycho.
The Yuki Onna story is basically keep my secret. After they have a relationship together. And then he doesn't keep the secret and she melts. And there's like different variations of the same story where she
Yeah.
turns psycho in the end and kills a lot of people. And she kills like majority of his family, like all kinds of creepy things. But it's essentially just like the same kind of story as this. There's a lot of Japanese mythology and like modern day Japanese stories where they love using like say Sadako from The Ring. Ringu, for example, where it's a long dark-haired girl who's pasty-faced, skinny, and probably has less meat on her than a chicken nugget, but she's dangerous as all hell. You gotta run from that.
Yeah.
In terms of pacing, this kind of reminded me of one of those Paranormal Activity movies, like where you're waiting and waiting and waiting for the horror elements to finally show up, and you do eventually get to them, but you got to wait a long time for them to finally show up.
Okay, the indulgent and the engaging part of that, though, is a good story. Like, does it grip you as it goes along? Because this one did. I mean, it was just slow.
It was interesting just to see how oblivious the main character was. Like, that was the interesting part of it for me.
Well, they let you know all along that he's so self-absorbed. When his secretary, assistant, what have you, says, well, you know, I will be, gone for a while soon. I'm getting married, remember?
I like the secretary angle.
Yeah, like...
Yeah,
it just
felt
shows
like
how self-absorbed he is.
the world is going or like blowing by around him, and he has no idea. Like, she may have feelings for him, but like he doesn't care. He's so self-absorbed. He's like looking at his desk drawers and everything that's in them and everything, reorganizing his stuff. And she just walks in and is like almost on the verge of inviting him to something. To be a part of her life.
I was waiting for there to be a payoff for that, and there never was.
No, that's the point, though. That's the whole thing. Like, it's life passing him by, and he doesn't realize it.
I know, and I didn't get that until the very end, when it's just there to show how, detached from reality he is.
It reminded me of American Psycho, like the secretary in that too, where she's clearly got feelings for Patrick Bateman in that movie, but obviously Bateman is, Bateman. He's an egomaniac.
A boy ain't right.
But at least in that case, he's a complete mental case, and you're told off the bat he's a mental case.
Well, you also told from his perspective too in like American Psycho.
Yeah.
I suppose that helps.
Okay, then my last pick was House on Haunted Hill.
Yeah, this is great.
Now, this is the original 1959 version. This was not the remake. I have seen the remake as well as the original before. The remake, it's, in my opinion, nowhere near as good as the original. The remake focuses more on the horror element. If I'm not mistaken, the remake has Taye Diggs in it, and that's about the best part of the remake. I like Taye Diggs.
Wait, who's Taye Diggs again?
I'll tell
Like
Phil
that.
sometime he'll know Taye Diggs from Equilibrium.
Yeah.
Oh, was he
Equilibrium.
the... Okay,
he was
was
the
he
new
the...
partner for Christian Bale.
Yeah, he was the new cleric that replaced Sean Bean, wasn't
Yes.
he? Okay, yeah, he was pretty good in that. I quite liked him in that.
Okay, so I
was
really
gonna say the only thing I've ever seen that he was in was probably Sesame Street. So I'm glad you mentioned Equilibrium. Spur me from my indignity.
I really like Taye Diggs. He is a damn good-looking man, and he is a good actor. But he's like the best thing in that remake.
Setup for this is like very Agatha Christie inspired. Wealthy businessman / socialite essentially gathers a group of seemingly anonymous individuals to a manor / mansion where they can enjoy a creepy night of spooktacular fun and games. Hopefully nothing shenaniganry goes wrong, right?
But it's more about the really awful relationship between Vincent Price's character and the Annabelle character.
This kind of reminded me of an episode of Scooby-Doo.
Yes, it kind of has that framing where you don't know who to trust. It has like a haunted mansion with like hallways and door frames and rooms for each of the guests where they can all enjoy a little episodic feature every so often. Like it's pretty good, and it doesn't make a lot of sense in retrospect considering the stuff that happened in that movie, like the piano playing itself, the hands around people's throats and necks during some scenes.
Scooby-Doo mixed with a certain Rick and Morty episode.
Oh, which one?
Vat of Acid.
Oh, yeah, I remember mentioning on the night, like, why is that down there? Like, was it explained in the movie why there's a vat of acid in the basement?
Yes.
And the fact that it becomes quite pivotal to the movie as well is kind of perplexing choice.
But I love that movie. I love Vincent Price. He was so great. He was a very talented actor.
I'm lukewarm on it. I didn't hate it, but I will say the ending definitely saved it for me. Like I was laughing very, very, very hard towards the end of that movie.
It wasn't supposed to be funny, I don't think.
I know.
But that's the thing, like it's aged such in a manner that it appears charming. And when charm goes over a certain limit, it becomes hilarious. So, I mean, it makes me like it more.
Well, we were dealing with 1959 effects. Okay.
Would you? Okay, but would you call those effects? That's the thing.
Okay, they might have been.
They did their best.
I know.
Okay, they were primitive effects, but they were primitive effects that reminded me of an Evil Dead movie. So, you know.
Yeah, we got what might as well have been cinema's first talking skeleton. So, hell yes, I'm on board. Like, it got me then and there.
What was your take, Kieran?
I think I was too sick to pay attention.
Yeah,
Okay.
This might have been one of those nights where he was actually quite, was it stomachy or chesty or something?
Yeah, I think I ate something that didn't agree with me.
Oh, dear.
Ooh.
Okay. So, honestly, out of my 6, Bubba Hotep, Sundown, Vampires in Retreat, Death Bell, The Mortuary Collection, Audition, and House on Haunted Hill. My favorite's House on Haunted Hill because I love Vincent Price that much. And it is a fun, good old movie. And there is a haunted house thing. There are scares. It wasn't like over the top jump scares, and it's charming.
I think that's my
It
second
has a certain
favorite.
charm.
Yeah, I think that's my second favorite. My first would be Mortuary Collection from the ones that you picked.
Mortuary Collection is for me like tied with Bubba Hotep because I love Bruce Campbell and Clancy Brown both so much. I do
think Bubba Hotep is better upon rewatching it now for me, but like I still don't think it's as good as like House on Haunted Hill, and I would definitely consider it third place maybe, but just not as good as those two. Like Mortuary Collection, like we mentioned, I'll watch that again at some point. I enjoyed it that much.
Oh yeah.
And there's enough range in the depth of the storylines that it is engaging. It's like thoughtful to look at. Plus knowing the setup and the payoff and everything as it's coming is. Plus something we didn't mention. You know, I love my hokey town names.
Oh yeah.
I love terrible town names like Potter's Bluff. You know, Silent Hill, and like what kind of creepazoid like idiot made this town? He founded it originally with that name.
In Trolls 2, wasn't it something backwards as a goblin or something?
It was like Nilbog.
Yeah,
Nilbog, it's goblin spelled backwards. No! My least favorite of the ones that you picked was Vampires in Retreat. I hated that. I might have hated that movie.
That is my least favorite, honestly.
Yeah. That might be my favorite. It made me laugh so hard.
You're so weird. You are wired backwards, I swear.
It made me laugh so hard, especially David Carradine. I'm sorry.
I feel like Chris and that Family Guy say like, "Oh, for the love of God, Robert Duvall!" Screaming at you like
Kieran,
I did.
What was your favorite?
Probably Death Bell.
Okay, I can see that.
I will say Mortuary Collection, though, very close second. I like that one a lot, too.
But yours is going to be Sundown.
In terms of enjoyment, yeah, probably.
Okay.
All right.